For solving number 82, I could work in this horizontal format, but I think a lot of times with adding, subtracting fractions, especially if they're mixed numbers, I prefer a vertical orientation. So I'm going to write 14 and 4/7, and I'm trying to subtract 6 and 1/3. Okay. Obviously, I'm going to need common denominators. So the common denominator, a number that 7 will go into, that 3 will also go into, is 21. Okay. But again, I'm not allowed to just change the value because I'm in the mood to do that. You have to get there in a balanced way. So to get from 3 to 21, you multiply by 7. You do the same to the numerator. That would give you 7 over 21. And then to get from 7 to 21, you would multiply by 3. So you would do the same to the numerator. That'll give you 12. All right. And you can just subtract the way it is. 12, if you subtract 7, you'll be left with 5. You keep your denominator. And 6, if you have 14, you subtract 6. You'd be left with 8. And remember, the larger value is positive, so our answer is positive. Okay. Number 83. It's already in a vertical format, so that's convenient. Let's see if I can get that thing out of my way. Yeah. So let's see. The easiest way to do this problem is going to be to borrow. So, and borrowing, it might look a little strange at first. It's the same idea of borrowing when you borrow powers of 10 in a regular subtraction problem. When you first learned subtraction and borrowing, it's the same process, but it looks much different. If I borrow, I'm trying to subtract, and next to the 17 I have air, that won't work. Okay, so I borrow 1 from the 7 and it becomes 6. And this is, because I'm in fractions, it's going to be a funny looking 1. I have a denominator of 9 down here. I would like a denominator of 9 up here, because when you're adding or subtracting, if you have like denominators, you can go to work. So I'm just going to say, because that's a 9, I'm going to say this is a 9. And if this denominator is 9 and the whole thing here is equivalent to a 1, I have no choice. The numerator has to be a 9. Okay? If this denominator had been a 5, I would have made this denominator a 5 and this numerator a 5. Okay? As long as it's equivalent to a 1, I can put anything that I like up there. So if I have 9/9 and I subtract 1/9, I'll be left with 8/9. And if I have 16, subtract 7, that will be 9. Okay, so this would be your answer. Let's take a look at 84. We're going to need common denominators here. So looking at my 9 and 4, the common denominator will be 36. And to get from 9 to 36, you had to multiply by 4, so you do the same to the numerator, and that gives you 32. To get from 4 to 36, you multiplied by 9, so you do the same to the numerator. That gives you 27. And I think you can see there's a little problem here. If I'm trying to subtract, if I have 27, I can't subtract 32. Again, in order to subtract, you can't subtract 32 from 27. You might be thinking, well, I've done that before. With integers, you put the larger integer on top, and that's how you subtract. So if I just had the integers 27 and negative 32, I can subtract 27 from 32. So that would be, and when I do this subtraction, I get a negative 5. But I had to put the larger number on top in order to do that. That's how you subtract. Even when you do it in your head, you subtract the smaller from the larger. Well, over here, the larger number is already on top. 9 is larger than 2, so this number has to stay on top. All right, so we're gonna have to borrow. All right, it's getting a little bit confusing to look at, so I'm going to rewrite that and then borrow. All right, so I don't really need this over here anymore. Oops, I'll do that. There. All right, so 9 3/4 became 9 27/36. Two 8/9 became 2 32/36. I'm trying to subtract here, and I'm going to have to borrow. So this 32/36 is going to stay exactly the way it is. That's going to be 32/36. And this, I'm going to borrow 1 from the 9. It's going to become 8. And it's going to be 1 in the form of 36 over 36. Grant you that's a funny looking 1, but I want common denominators because I have to add this 1 to this fraction. So that yields 63. Now I can subtract. So we get a 1, 31/36, and 8 subtract 2 leaves us with 6. So there's our answer for number 84.